What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. And today we're talking the Liv Forever documentary that went up on the network this past Sunday, focusing on the journey of Liv Morgan in WWE. This has been hyped up for a couple of weeks now. I was looking forward to it. I've never considered myself to be the biggest Liv Morgan fan, but I would say I gained a new respect for her, gained a new perspective of what Liv Morgan is all about, her journey, who she is as a person. Coming out of this documentary, I thought it was really, really good, which obviously comes as no surprise. I think I have yet to see a WWE documentary on the network or otherwise that was subpar or not good or not well produced. Obviously, I would have my nitpicks about certain things they didn't go into too much detail about, in various documentaries. But I thought with this documentary specifically, they did a very good job of covering her backstory, upbringing, time in NXT. I mean, she was there for a while. Not that they glossed over it, but there really isn't a lot to say there. I mean, she was there for 3 years. She wasn't involved in any prominent storylines. She was just kind of there training and getting better. They didn't go into great detail about the Riot Squad aside from just their debut, but they do mention that, obviously, as they have to. This is largely about her. The whole reason why this documentary was made, I guess, was because when she got drafted to SmackDown in 2019, in April of last year, 19 months ago? 19 months ago at this point, I believe. But when she got drafted to SmackDown, the idea was that she was going to be this big single star and re-debut. And then it turned into this 18-month-long documentary. It was never supposed to run until November of 2020. It was supposed to just kind of cover her re-debut on SmackDown, and then it never happened. She didn't re-debut until the summer, and they kept rolling with the footage until the Raw thing came around, and now she's back with the Riot Squad, specifically Ruby, obviously not Sarah. They don't mention that she got fired. They don't talk about the reaction to that, because, I mean, why would they, I guess? Although Sarah is interviewed for the documentary, I mean, this thing would not be complete without her. They have Sarah Logan in here, Liv Morgan herself, obviously, Ruby Riot, obviously, as they should. They interview her mom. I'm trying to think if they had anyone else. I don't think they did. I think it was really just the Riot Squad and then Liv's mom. And I guess you don't really need more than that. We see Michael Hayes quite a bit. We hear her talk about Triple H. Actually, we do hear from Paul Heyman, who obviously was a very big supporter of Liv Morgan during his time on the Raw creative team as the executive Raw director, whatever. So anyway, we'll start from the beginning here. She mentions that her real name is Gianna, and this is more of a journey of Gianna as opposed to Liv Morgan. Gianna is who she really is. And I don't think we hear anyone call her Gianna for the remainder of the documentary. I might be wrong on that, but she does mention that right from the get-go. And she kind of quickly recaps how she had success with the Riot Squad, and she mentions, this kind of got a laugh out of me. There were two things that were a little like, that's a bit of an exaggeration. One at the beginning here and then one at the end. The beginning one was where she said, oh yeah, we had success at WrestleMania and Super Showdown and Evolution. They lost at literally all three of those fucking pay-per-views. Listen, I like the Riot Squad, but I think my biggest issue with the group had nothing to do with the women themselves, but rather how they were booked. I never really cared about the group that much, just because they never actually did live up to their full potential as a trio because of how they were booked. And honestly, rewatching this footage made me think, why were they heels? I think Ruby was always a natural babyface in NXT. She is a better babyface than a heel, in my opinion. Liv is a natural babyface. And Sarah Logan, I thought, was always a better babyface, too. She was probably the least interesting of the three, but she was always a better babyface, too. So to debut them as heels kind of felt weird to me, and it was also a bit of it felt repetitive after the Absolution debut on Raw the night before. I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but I felt like they might have had more success as this punk rock trio, as kind of like what we're seeing now from Liv and Ruby as a tag team, as opposed to this heel trio, which it just didn't really work as well. Not with the women themselves, but like their dynamic and how they were booked. They never won anything of importance. They never won the tag titles. I honestly can't tell you one pay-per-view match these women ever won. They were on all the pay-per-views they mentioned that Liv brought up. Super Showdown, Evolution, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, blah, blah, blah. They lost at literally every single one of those shows. They were never positioned as any real threat, and it sucks. But that was really, I think, what went wrong with the group. So this whole thing starts at the Superstar Shakeup 2019, and Ruby says outright, I didn't really feel like we were ready to break up. Because Liv even thought they were going to win the SmackDown, or not the SmackDown, but just the tag titles in general. Before she went to SmackDown, they were going to win the tag team titles because they got various shots at the tag titles, and I can't even say various actually because the tag titles were created. I'm probably thinking of recently, but they created the tag titles in early of 2019, February of 2019. The Riot Squad were involved in the chamber match to determine the first ever SmackDown, or I keep saying SmackDown, the first ever WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. They lost, and then they got broken up 2 months later. They got broken up before they even really had a chance to go for the tag titles. And, Ruby even said, we only barely scratched the surface of what we could do together. And Sarah even said that there was no closure there. They were just abruptly broken up in the draft. Liv got sent to SmackDown. Ruby was hurt, so she had to go get surgery. And she kind of blames herself for the breakup. She feels like if she didn't have to get surgery, maybe WWE may not have felt as, tempted to break the duo or break the trio up. Sarah was on Raw by herself. Liv went to SmackDown to do nothing. Sarah did nothing. She was on Main Event for the rest of 2019. And then Ruby was hurt up until early 2020. So breaking up the group, in retrospect, was absolutely the wrong call. Just a complete waste. And they didn't reach the heights that they hoped, Liv said. So she finds out about going to SmackDown, and she's happy about the opportunity, but she is crying that she is going to be separated from her two best friends, because that's all she's ever known, is having these two women with her. So she goes all the way back to her childhood, and she brings up how she didn't really have anyone to guide her along, kind of teach her things as she grew up. Her mom was a single mom. Her dad passed away when she was pretty young, I believe. She had 6 siblings. I think 2 sisters, 1 older sister, 1 younger sister, and then 3 or 4 brothers, I believe. I think 4 brothers. That's unbelievable. And she said that her brothers were destructive and mean, and we don't hear from the brothers, but they did celebrate when she got signed by the company, so they can't be that bad, but I guess they were pretty mean to her growing up. And the mother recalls, because again we hear from Mama Morgan here, she recalls how hard it was financially for them growing up and how she worked 60 hours a week as a waitress, which is unbelievable. So yeah, her dad passed away when she was young. She was a cheerleader in high school. She went to a middle/high school. That's what it was called, a middle/high school. She was a cheerleader there, and no one really knew that she had this secret life at home where it was really tough. People were yelling and screaming and kind of being abusive towards each other, blah, blah, blah. And she would kind of escape all of that by watching wrestling. And watching wrestling gave her a purpose. And she said as soon as she saw it that was what she knew she wanted to do. And the mom was very supportive of her dreams. She built a backyard ring for her and her siblings out of cushions and all this makeshift stuff, which I thought was really cool. So she actually dropped out of high school her sophomore year. She got her GED, but she dropped out of high school. She didn't say why. I guess maybe it was I was going to say maybe to train to be a pro wrestler, but, a lot of wrestlers, they don't go to college, but they at least graduate high school. So she never said that she hated school, so I thought that I wish they kind of went into more about that, but maybe it's a personal thing they don't really want to delve into. I don't know. But she didn't finish high school. She got her GED, though, and then she worked at Hooters because she knew that she had to make money, and she called it a very great experience, which, there's a lot of judgment regarding Hooters, but obviously it's a different restaurant now than it was maybe 15, 20 years ago, and she started working there in 2010. So while she worked there, she got opportunities. She did magazines, she did photo shoots, beauty pageants, stuff like that. It really helped her out a lot. It was also around that time she started working out with a guy named Joe DeFranco, who trained with Triple H. And it was probably because of him, in knowing Triple H, that she got a WWE tryout. I'm not sure. She didn't really mention the process and attending the tryout if she saw it on TV. It was probably because of DeFranco, I would have to imagine, that he got an in for her. But it wasn't because of him that she got signed. She put in the work. She did the tryout in the summer of 2014. Canyon Ceman called her the 4th of July weekend that year to tell her that she got signed. Started crying on the phone, obviously very, very happy. Her brother celebrating in the background. She was only 19 at the time, which is crazy. She's around the same age that I am. I think she's 26 now. I'm 25, so I believe she's a year older than me. But that's crazy to me. That's just unbelievable. So she says that she's very grateful for the PC, the Performance Center, really molded her into the performer that she is today. Because she really had to learn everything from scratch. Liv Morgan did not come from the indie scene. They didn't make it sound like she had any real wrestling experience pre-WWE. She worked out a lot, but she wasn't, at the Monster Factory or whatever. She had to learn from scratch, and that's why she was never really any good in those early years of NXT, and that's probably why I didn't care about her too much. But she did, to her credit, make a lot of improvement in the years that followed. She talked about the mirror room in the PC and how it helped her with her promos and really kind of develop a personality and a character for herself. And she went through a lot of characters while she was there. She got better in the ring. She made her debut at, I believe, a house show for NXT in June 2015. She bonded with Aaliyah when she was there. They were really good friends as well. So in late 2017, she had been in NXT at this point for 3 years, which is a long time. I mean, Aaliyah's been there pretty much that entire time, and she never got called up. But it took Liv Morgan 3 years to get called up. Initially, it was an email that she got that she was tagged with all these other people about coming to Raw for a dark match. But it wasn't a dark match. She got hid in a room with Ruby and Sarah, and I don't think they were close in NXT. I think they only really bonded when they were put together on TV, but they got hid in a room at Raw that night, or maybe at Survivor Series, I think, with Mandy Rose and Sonya. So I think Canyon Seaman and Triple H came in the room to tell them that Mandy and Sonya were getting called up the next night with Paige as part of Absolution as a heel faction on Raw, and that Ruby, Sarah, and Liv were going to SmackDown also as a heel faction. So it obviously meant a lot to them. They got the date tattooed on themselves. They debuted on SmackDown. Sarah, I guess, feared that Liv wouldn't fit in with the group, which makes sense because obviously Sarah and Ruby, and I saw this in an extra that WWE put up on their YouTube channel, that Sarah and Ruby were close from the indie scene. They kind of came up in the indies together. Liv had no prior indie experience. They probably weren't very close with her in NXT at all, but it happened naturally, and they got, it was her goal to get them to like her, and they did. They obviously are pretty much inseparable now. We see her right before her SmackDown debut, kind of fast-forwarding to present day. Drake Maverick giving her advice, which was cool. What was supposed to be her SmackDown debut. Obviously, she wouldn't debut for many more months. So, it was literally 3 months. I remember this at the time last year. Like, it was week after week, and she wasn't on the show. And obviously, Liv Morgan isn't the biggest name on SmackDown at that point, but it was weird that they would draft her to SmackDown and never put her on the show. It's not even like she was on the show losing. She just wasn't even on SmackDown. No vignettes, no nothing. So Ruby was texting her pretty much on a weekly basis about, so what do they have for you this week? And she's like, oh, nothing. Nothing, week after week after week. And Ruby and Sarah tried to kind of like reassure her, they're probably saving you for something special, so you got to have hope. So she found out she was facing Charlotte on SmackDown in mid-July of last year. I remember the episode. She called out Charlotte at the beginning of the show. It was a cool moment, and again, it was a cool opportunity for her where she impressed in defeat, but then they did nothing with her after the fact. So she actually called her mom beforehand to tell her that she was debuting on SmackDown. Her mom's all happy, really cool moment. So she has the match, she loses, and then promises to come back more real afterward, in like a post-match promo. And then we didn't fucking see her for like another 4 months. Actually, we saw her in the vignettes, but we really wouldn't see her again on the show, like in actual form until December. So again, I feel like that was just, it's not like they had an idea in July of what they were going to do with her on Raw 5 or 6 months later. They probably just had no idea what they were going to do with her. And we hear from Bayley, and she says that she was kind of worried that Liv might get lost on her own, get lost in the shuffle. My phone just went off, sorry about that. That she kind of worried that Liv would get lost in the shuffle without her friends. But she didn't. She didn't get lost on her own. And Liv at this point is wondering why she isn't being used. She pitched darker, tortured soul-esque characters, and they were all kind of turned down. So WWE eventually told her they wanted this is her words, a stripped-down Liv Morgan. And honestly, when she started that sentence, as I'm sure I'm not the only one, a lot of people probably thought, did they tell her to have a stripper character? That's what I thought she was going with this. Thankfully, that was not the case. I guess you can kind of argue that it was based off of her attire at the time. But I thought she was going to say, oh, we want you to come back as a stripper or whatever. And I'm like, well, thankfully, that's not what they told her. They said stripped down Liv Morgan, meaning less makeup, more of a real, organic Liv Morgan. So she dyed her hair back blonde. She said without anyone knowing, which I guess that's a big no-no in WWE. Usually you get a lot of heat for that. I guess she didn't. But she dyed her hair back blonde. So she finds out she's facing Ember Moon in a dark match, okay? And she had new gear made and everything. And right before they're about to go up, they got the WrestleMania 29 Funkadactyls Bella Twins treatment, where they find out literally seconds before they're about to go out that it got canceled. And, Michael Hayes was actually the one that broke the news to them, and she's really upset. So she finds out that Vince did not want her on TV until the crowd sees her in her final form. They really wanted to, re-debut her in the grandest way possible, and no one's going to see her until then. So she's like, okay, at least there's a plan here. So she actually watched the 2019 draft from home, and that was when she found out she was the last person picked in the draft to Raw, which meant, okay, they probably have plans for me if they're going to want to tell people I'm being moved to Raw. It's a big deal to be a part of the televised portion of the draft, So she had a supporter in Paul Heyman right from the get-go. Paul Heyman was probably probably a big reason why she was drafted to Raw. Was so, he could book her in the storyline and whatever and give her this big, grand plan. So he actually FaceTimed her about re-debuting that night, which was in Hartford, December 30th. I remember because I was there. I was at that last Raw of the decade, the last Raw 2019, for this terrible Lana Lashley wedding that was going on at this time between Bobby Lashley and Lana. And she was going to be revealed as Lana's past secret lover. And we're all thinking, the fuck is this shit? I mean, come on. She made the most out of it. And Heyman talked about the twists and the turns of the story. Honestly, Heyman talks a lot without saying a lot at all sometimes. And I feel like this was one of those instances. It was such a dumb fucking story. And I know it was the main event segment. They really wanted to bring her in the grandest way possible. But Liv even said after this whole thing, she lost sight of who she was supposed to be in the weeks following that big re-debut. She had no idea what this character was supposed to be, and she lost confidence in herself as a result. So again, what the fuck was all of that for? I don't care what they said here. I don't care what she says or Paul Heyman says. The whole wedding shit was a complete waste of time. And people might remember that's how she came back, but that doesn't necessarily make it good. You know what I mean? I just felt like it was a complete waste of her. It was a waste of Lashley. Lana, I don't give a fuck about. Miro's gone now. Just a waste of everyone's time, really. So anyway, they fast forward to WrestleMania. WrestleMania obviously got reworked due to the circumstances. I heard somewhere that they were supposed to do Ruby, Liv, and Sarah at WrestleMania. I don't think so, because they weren't really building that up. I mean, they kind of were before Elimination Chamber, but not before WrestleMania. But that's when the pandemic happened, so maybe not. But anyway, so she ended up facing Natalya on the pre-show. Very thankful for that WrestleMania opportunity she was. Very happy to have her dream job. Her mom talks about how her mom she's really proud of her for making it to that level. And they talk about the squad reuniting, the Riot Squad, and it feels wrong to Ruby to call it the Riot Squad because Sarah's not there. She got fired in April. She's pregnant now, can't come back anyway. And I thought they were going to go with the new name. They teased the new name a couple of months ago, and they never called themselves anything but the Riot Squad, so I guess not. Maybe WWE didn't want to change the name, but they did. I'm not sure. But Ruby says they are too hungry to let this thing fall through the cracks again, that being the Riot Squad. And to close this thing out, Liv said that she would tell her 6-year-old self to just relax and have fun. And, to just kind of enjoy the journey. And this is her chance to rewrite history. Now, Ruby did say at this last portion of the documentary that all three of them will be back someday, which I agree it's probably going to happen down the road. At least after she's done being a mom. I mean, not after she's done being a mom, but she's pregnant right now, so maybe a little later down the road. But she did say, I said earlier, that there were two things that were a little off about the documentary that I thought were kind of not funny, but like when Liv said, they had a lot of success at all these shows, they never won any of those matches. And then Ruby said here, the other thing that was kind of weird that Ruby said that she probably shouldn't have, and I get you what she was saying. She was like, we'll be in the Hall of Fame someday. I fucking don't think so. I'm sorry. I not that I hope not, but like, hey, listen, everyone makes it in the fucking Hall of Fame someday at some point, so maybe she's not wrong. But if the Riot Squad are being inducted into the Hall of Fame 5-10 years from now, that's an issue. I mean, unless they win the tag titles like multiple times in the next couple of years and make a real impact, it's laughable because they've done absolutely nothing together. But I do like the Riot Squad. I just thought that was funny. But overall, though, I thought this was a very good documentary. Check it out right now on the WWE Network. Liv Forever. Very much enjoyed it. It's only around 43 minutes, so it's well worth taking the time out of your day to check out if you haven't already watched it. So be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Hit that bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. Check out more original special reviews from the WWE Network right here in WWE Network and Chill in the description box below. So coming up tomorrow, I will have my review of Raw Talk up, so check that out. And, I believe the Mandalorian review is also going to be up a little bit. Actually, that should have gone up already here on the channel, so check that out as well. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.